You are now tuned in to the Lineman Lounge, the world's thickest sports podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Evo.
Como están, bitches? This is the Lineman Lounge. I am Mike. That is Evo. It is Tuesday night. We are post Superb Owl. I said it at the end of the show last time. I said it a couple times in the show last time, but the Superb Owl is done. And it happened. We got it right. Eric's in here already. Fly high Eagles. Man, Eagles beat the shit out of the Chiefs. We're gonna break down that game a little bit, see and talk about what we saw, because what I saw was an absolute ass whooping. But we'll get to that. We got some other things to talk about as well. The quarterback carousel is gonna heat up pretty fast this offseason. Your team is going to be possibly switching quarterbacks, but staying in-house. My team is definitely moving on from quarterbacks. There's a lot of shit to go over as we move on into the season. But Evo, my man, how you doing? How's life? How's work? What'd you think of the game? I got a little tipsy. I don't drink too much anymore. But that was the only way I could make that game entertaining, truthfully. Like, it was awful.
Yeah, first and foremost, I had a great time watching the game with friends, with the Colemans and the Ortegas. The Ortegas that you know from work were gracious enough to have Pan and I over. And honestly, you know, Ortega's a big Chiefs fan, but and as much as Chiefs fans tend to be annoying, kind of almost more so than the Patriots fans were annoying when they had their little dynasty going. Tega's one of the greats. And we actually talked about it. He's like, I don't like to talk shit because as soon as I do, I feel like we get into a bad slump, things go bad. And I was kind of feeling the same way with my Vikings. Like, I don't like to talk too much shit because then I feel like you're acting in such a manner that fate is going to come back and bite you in the butt. So he's a good Chiefs fan, a good sports fan where he's not just going to be an asshole about it, which I love. But man, like while the game itself was extremely disappointing because it was so lopsided, I still had a great time, a lot of great food. I felt unbelievably terrible yesterday at work. It was a bad day to be a Bush. Let me tell you that much, because I like 10 Bush Lights, a shot, two, a lot of tacos and jalapeno poppers and everything, and I doing carnivore and stuff like that, and then switching to eating all that crap. The next day, it felt like I had like a bowling ball of food in my stomach that I could not get rid of. Like sitting on the toilet for hours, plenty coming out, still feeling like I hadn't emptied myself. I nearly puked driving into work, not from the drinking, because it felt like food was coming up, and I was just like terrible. Just felt terrible. I'm feeling good today, though.
That's good. That's so much better.
Things have mellowed out a little bit, but overall, while it was, as far as football is concerned, a pretty disappointing game and very lopsided, overall, I had a good time. Hope you had a good time as well.
Yeah.
And plenty to talk about with that. And obviously, we're going to be moving into a brand new season for the NFL now.
Yeah, yes, we are. Eric had himself a time. He had some Fireball, Bud Light, chili, corn dip, boneless wings, and cheese ball. That's a hell of a spread for the Super Bowl. We did it pretty good, man. I had a really good time over at my friend CJ's house. We did some sausages, some dips, chips. I had like 6 or 7 beers, which they're seltzers, but I call them beers to protect my fragile masculinity. And it was a good time, man. I also smoked my fair share of the devil's lettuce, and I mean some of the commercials were good. We'll talk about the Super Bowl performance, the halftime performance as well. There were elements of that I really liked, but the game itself was kind of abysmal to watch, because while the score is incredibly lopsided, Eagles 40, Chiefs 22, that score is closer than this game actually was, I feel like. So if you're ready, man, we can kind of start hopping into a little bit of the football, a little bit of the game, because I mean, there's a lot to go over here.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it.
All right, man. So this thing kicks off. Eagles come out, go down the field, get a good drive. Kind of the Chiefs defense looks like they're really good to start. They get a stop, but Pat and the Chiefs can't get anything going. Okay, so the Eagles are right back on the field, then they go down and score. And then this kind of became the theme. It was the Chiefs offense absolutely could not stay on the field for any amount of time, any extended drive in the first half. And the Eagles just wore the shit out of them throughout the entire game. You get Jalen Hurts run after run, Saquon Barkley run after run, even though it's not necessarily the most effective run game. They had the ball for fucking forever, and they were just able to beat this Chiefs defense down. This Chiefs defense, which is the best part of their team. This offense is kind of struggling all year. We saw some explosive plays in this game from Xavier Worthy, but that had kind of been missing from this offense most of the season, and it certainly wasn't enough now. Too little, too late, because that first half, there were no extended drives. The defensive line of the Eagles absolutely dominated this game. They changed the entire outlook of the way this game was going to be played. Immediate pressure up the middle wrecks any and every single offense. It does not matter. Your guards and your center are sure not your most athletic guys, not your highest paid guys on the offensive line, but they're incredibly important. Pressure in the middle of an offense wrecks the play right from the rip. This was, in my opinion, an absolute drubbing. And then the Eagles took their foot off the gas, and that's why the Chiefs even got 22. They didn't care. They were coasting. Kenny Pickett came in, threw a pass, and took 3 knees. Like, lost team yards. Like, that's how dominant this Eagles team was. Evo, what do you got on this?
Yeah, it was it's kind of what we have seen, like the eye test. We keep talking, despite the fact that all year the Chiefs have won. The eye test for this team has always been that the offense just does not look the same. Pat Mahomes doesn't look the same. I said, probably going to be a hot take earlier in the year, but Pat Mahomes did not look like a top 10 quarterback, not even necessarily a top 15 quarterback. And that's kind of what we saw in this game. You have a lot of names on this offense. Like, the strong points of this Chiefs offense has been their offensive line this year. Generally in the middle of that offensive line has been really good. And then you have Mahomes, who is typically the magician. He's able to maneuver in the pocket, out of the pocket, avoid pressure, and get off these passes. But some of your more notable names, Kelsey, Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, those guys, I mean, Kareem Hunt, even Pacheco, those guys all looked like B and C tier athletes at their positions. Like, Kelsey's age showed he's not getting separation. DeAndre Hopkins wasn't necessarily getting separation. And then when he did, he drops easy passes. It looked like it didn't even compute in my head on that one pass. And y'all know what I'm talking about, where he just tries to almost one-hand it. And it's like he's holding his right hand up like he doesn't want to try for it. Meanwhile, you are down. You need that first down. You need momentum shifts. Like, they should be doing everything. The offense seemed to have no pop, no pizzazz. I'm not talking like a Detroit Lions Ben Johnson-esque type of trick play or anything like that, but they just didn't seem to have any sort of, I don't know, compelling drive to really put anything on the board. Their skill position players definitely did not look A tier. They barely looked B tier at times. And Mahomes, for what it's worth, while he did maneuver in the pocket some, his passes were a lot closer to a Jordan Love than we're used to seeing. A lot of inaccuracy. It looked like he was trying to do his normal razzle dazzle, but he wasn't following through with the actual passing capability.
Razzled, it didn't dazzle.
Yeah, it was really rough to watch. And that normally, like, even with that, the Chiefs can typically stay in a game, but it doesn't feel like this year like they've been down by more than 2 scores very often, if at all, because that defense is able to keep games pretty damn close. But I mean, also, if you look back in the year, I think it took a long time for the Chiefs to score like a lot of points on offense in a game. Like it was the defense that was holding them in there, and the offense was doing enough to get ahead. But the defense just didn't have any answers for that Eagles offense. Like they were not getting pressure. The blitzes weren't working. The Eagles defense, I don't think recorded an official blitz on the game. Like
I don't think
they were
they
getting
had to.
they were getting pressure with their down linemen. Milton Williams, defensive tackle, who is a rotational guy for him, about to be a free agent, just made himself a lot of money getting 2 sacks in this game. The Eagles showed why getting pressure with your 4 down linemen is so important in the NFL. Like blitzes matter, but if you're able to get that pressure without them, you're going to lock everything down. You know, Cooper DeJean had a fantastic game. One for the Whites.
Yeah, I posted it. I had to.
On
Look,
his
the joke
birthday.
will probably die now that this
Yeah.
season is over. But one last time I had to get that in there.
Yeah. But it just on both sides of the ball, it looked like the Chiefs didn't have any answers, like they were truly outmatched. And once they started to get outpaced, there wasn't any comeback potential. It was truly a trouncing. And I don't even want to call it like a coaching win for the Eagles. They just looked like the superior athletic team on the field.
Yeah.
And the coaches didn't have to do a ton for it. And that's not to denigrate the coaches for the Eagles or anything. You know, Fangio did a great job. Kellen Moore did a good enough job to get himself a head coaching gig.
He did.
And Sirianni, you know, didn't completely screw things up. So yeah, it was rough. Yes, the score was a pretty wide margin. The Delta closed a little bit at the end of the game, but again, that was garbage time. But it did kind of feel like the Eagles could have scored more than they actually did. It just made it unenjoyable to watch. Not that I was invested in either team. I was just invested in hopefully having a good football game, and we didn't really get that.
Yeah, good football is the only thing I hope for really in Super Bowls because I've never seen my team in one. I guess I've rooted for a couple teams to lose. I mean, I was rooting for the Chiefs to lose in this. I didn't want to see the three-peat. I'm a hater. I'll be honest about it. Jalen Hurts, hey man, I was a hater. We put out some content earlier in the year asking if he was done, if we saw the best of Jalen Hurts, and that we were on a downslide. Nope. He looked pretty goddamn good. I mean, 17 to 22 for 222 yards, 2 tuds. Now, granted, he throws the pick, but he also affects the game with his legs, 72 yards and a touchdown. I mean, it's not the typical way. It's very Lamar Jackson-esque. And that's okay. You can win like that.
And the thing is that while he did win the MVP, and I don't mean this again to denigrate Jalen Hurts, but he didn't look spectacular in this game. Like the Chiefs defense just did not have an answer for what they drew up. Saquon was effective. The pass game was effective when it needed to be. Like they were just steady Johnny on the spot. Jalen Hurts, I don't think did anything that was like spectacular. He did what he should be doing as a quarterback, and he fed the ball to his playmakers. And when that wasn't an option, he took what was available and ran with the ball. He had himself a good game for sure, but he didn't look like the kind of game breaker like he was thought to maybe be 2-3 years ago. We still saw times like some passes in this game where it still didn't look like he had the fully capable NFL arm strength. He underthrew some, and it looked like it could be an issue. It started to bring back memories of 2 years ago in the Super Bowl where he didn't have the arm strength to complete things down the field.
Yeah.
But they didn't have to go to that. They weren't down. They didn't have to play that hyper aggressive style of football. When the Eagles were in control, they just get to play off of their script, and that script really worked.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really deny it. Nobody on the Chiefs offense did much anything with the exception of Xavier Worthy. And that's because he made the most of his opportunities, and he is fast as fuck. I mean, that 50-yard bomb, he just ran. There was no nuance to that route whatsoever. Pat got it, took 3 steps, and then said, fuck it, huck it, chuck it, football. Xavier Worthy's down there somewhere. And he was. So it was an ass beating in basically every facet of the word.
Yeah, for sure. But then that kind of takes us to some of the commercials of the game. What were your thoughts on the commercials?
Commercials were okay. The Mayo commercial, the redoing of When Harry Met Sally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a classic movie. Hilarious in the moment, especially if you're at a large gathering and people aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Fucking hilarious.
I immediately saw what was going on. I was like, oh, she's about to bust, isn't she? And sure enough, and you know what? Not assigning to Will Levis anywhere.
No.
That was a missed opportunity for Levis, but it was probably because he's on the down and outs right now. His team might be looking for a new quarterback in town.
No, they will probably be looking for sure. Producer Amber hopping in here. The Mountain Dew Seal.
Yeah, Seal, played by Seal. Yeah, it was weird. I need to rewatch it to get all the lyrics. I know that they were on the screen. Look, I'm going to be completely honest. Those 2 commercials, I know I saw the Dunkin' commercial, but not a ton of them really stood out to me. Again, I was in a group setting, party environment. It's tough to watch the commercials. Usually when I do go out and hang out with other people during the Super Bowl, I pay a lot less attention to those commercials, and then I will check the next day and see like what played, what was popular, things like that. Just because I'm trying to enjoy the company. Those ones I definitely do recall. Interesting for sure.
Yeah, the Steel one I thought was made with AI for sure. It looked weird as hell, but it was interesting. We got Eric in here as well. The Pringles mustache. This is one I do not actually remember.
Yeah, I don't recall it. I remember we had eyebrows on Eugene Levy that were flying off for Little Caesars. Obviously the Shane Gillis and Post Malone Bud Light cul-de-sac party. That was always fun.
You can't drink a beer on TV.
Yeah, it was not as wild and raunchy. Is what it is.
Another one in here. Bud Light reverse rolls this year. I don't remember what we're talking about there either. The commercials were okay. There were not a ton that like really popped. I was expecting to see some more like crazy political commercials. We still got a couple of This Is Us or He Gets Us, whatever the fuck it is, commercials.
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus. Or as our fellow friend, or as our buddies to the south call him, Jesus.
Yahweh.
Yeah. No, they were okay, man. The commercials were okay. Now, I want to know what you thought of the halftime show. So, and I'll tell you where I'm at on it. I liked the halftime show, not necessarily for the music though, because we kind of talked about music and all that stuff in our prop show. I'm not a huge fan of Kendrick's music. I know some of it. Some of it's pretty good, but overarching, I'm not a huge Kendrick guy. But what I thought was really fucking cool about the halftime show is the way it was shot. Like the camera work that was done and with the pullouts and cut ins made it kind of seem like they were shooting a music video, and instead of, just doing hard cuts, they couldn't make that work. So they were using the wide shots to generate that cut as they were building this story of this music video. Now, you can have whatever opinions you want about whatever message you were sending. Okay. It's not hard to figure out. But I thought what they did with the way it was shot was pretty fucking awesome. And then I thought his performance was actually pretty good too. A lot of callbacks. I was a little shocked that he did not like us. Respect it because he was fucking specifically told not to. So I thought it wasn't too bad, but once again, like the music is kind of meh, and he was a little tough to hear. I mean, he was moving around a fucking lot.
Yeah, it was difficult picking out some of the lyrics for sure. I'm probably more of a fan maybe than you are, but that's not to say like I'm a big Kendrick fan. Like there are definitely songs that I do like. Um I do agree it was shot well. Overall, like I grade it like a B plus. Like I don't think it was a letdown by any means. It's tough to live up to Dr. Dre and whatnot that we had, a couple
Yeah,
of years
dude, that
ago.
will be the
Um,
greatest show that we've probably ever seen in the Super Bowl
that
for our
Prince
generation.
Prince was fantastic back in the day. But that's I'm a Minnesota boy.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, I thought it was good. I was a little bit more into the drama aspect of it because I think it's funny for rappers to be putting out their public drama type stuff. Uh, it was interestingly shot. I thought it was well done. I enjoy it even more, I think, after the fact, where it really was broken down. One of the things with Kendrick Lamar is through his music videos, basically any sort of public stuff that he does, there's usually layer upon layer of meaning, and he is able to just really subtly put in a lot of things that you wouldn't know or expect at first glance. It's kind of like one of those things where a director in a movie is doing so many little things to evoke emotions or make you think about stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think about it until you watch it a second time or a third time and it's broken down. And he did a ton of that through this performance. From having Drake's ex, Serena Williams out there, the A minor chain, things like that. The way that he fucking shoots the glance at the camera when he says, "Hey Drake," like things like that. There's the PlayStation, like he had PlayStation remotes and had things about being a game and stuff like that. There's a lot of different things that he's doing and Samuel L. Jackson kind of narrating things was really cool. There's tons of breakdowns, whether it's on TikTok, YouTube, wherever, that kind of explain all the stuff he was doing. I think that the amount of forethought that went into it made it more than just a performance. Like it truly made it an art piece that was interesting after the fact to me. My biggest complaint, I think, is the fucking bell bottoms, and it's not his fault. It's because
The
Hannah
internet.
won't Hannah won't stop watching, being like,
Internet, dude.
no, it's Hannah. Hannah won't stop being like, his legs look so good. I wish my legs looked that good in jeans. How did he get those jeans like that? I'm like, stop looking at his legs. Stop paying
Dude,
attention to the jeans.
apparently those jeans have blown the fuck up. It's not just Hannah. It is the
Yeah.
entire goddamn internet that's like, oh, these fucking jeans. I don't get it. I mean, they were jeans.
They fit appropriately in the thigh and made his leg and ass look good, which was appealing to the women, not because he's a man wearing them, but because that's what they want their legs to look like in jeans, apparently. And so apparently bell bottoms might be, or flared bottoms at least, might make some sort of a comeback. We'll see.
Hard pass, dog. I'm gonna stick with like the straight leg or the boot cut.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go whatever looks good on me. The other thing is there really wasn't, I mean, other than Serena being out there, which I didn't know was Serena at first. But Samuel L. Jackson, like I expected more artists to kind of be mixed in, but maybe I have too much of a high expectation because of the Dr. Dre ensemble that came out.
Yeah,
Like, and I know that there are usually a lot of collaborations with rap music in general, which provides opportunity for those collabs to happen in the Super Bowl. I wanted more of that. It made the show feel kind of short to me, honestly. So I would have liked that more, but like I'm picking at little things here. It's not like my top genre of music. He's not my top favorite artist. I get why a lot of people, especially older generation, was kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? I get it. But I think it's fair to say that while there's always going to be a lot of hate about everything, people are going to have their opinions and feel the ability to express negative opinions very freely on the internet. I feel like a majority of the people who are saying like this was the worst halftime show ever are also the people who should have been boycotting the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they
The ones
probably
that were
should have been
saying
watching.
the ones who are already like, I'm boycotting this, and now they're also happen to be watching the halftime show and they're having an opinion about it. It's kind of silly. Like you can like we can agree to disagree on whether or not it was a good performance, but like, does this call like terrible? I think is not correct. Like, I can say I don't think the Mona Lisa is like a fantastic piece of art.
I believe I believe that I resemble the people that you're currently referring to. Let me go ahead and toss on this pair of shades. If I could sit in a truck and just kind of angle the camera, I think this was terrible. It was the worst goddamn Super Bowl ever.
Yeah, it just feels a little silly. Feels a little silly. Look, I have high hopes for next year. I don't think it's going to happen, but the Super Bowl is in San Francisco. My favorite band, Metallica, is from San Francisco. We've been asking for Metallica to do a halftime show forever. Let's make it happen. They're not getting any younger.
Man, I got to tell you, the way the whole country has gone recently, you're talking about a reversal, a 180 flip going from Kendrick to Metallica.
Metallica has shown that they're not unwilling to collab. I'm pretty sure they've done collabs with Lady Gaga, obviously the Symphony Orchestra. Like, there's options out there.
There are. I think the last time we had a rock band, was it Aerosmith? Nelly came out, right?
Aerosmith was there. I don't want to call this rock band, but I mean, U2
no,
performed.
Not a rock band.
I don't agree, but they will be considered in the genre of rock.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, Prince is rock to an extent, pop rock, things like that. But yeah, we haven't really had much of anything heavy.
So producer Amber, I don't believe that Creed has ever played the halftime show at the Super Bowl. They did, however, bring the house down in fucking Dallas on a Thanksgiving, though. Yes. That I remember.
That did happen.
Yeah. Was it Scott Stapp just fucking getting it, bro? Mm-hmm. They were on wires, and that is that performance. That is a Thanksgiving game, I believe, not a Super Bowl.
I believe so. But yeah, so as far as the rest of the game, you know, again, like the Chiefs, they kind of looked like a team that had aged out really quick. Yeah. But I don't, obviously the shell of a good team is still really there. They're not losing coaches. You know, they're returning most of their people. It's not like a Lions situation where they are a carcass of what they were coach-wise. You still have one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterback out there in Mahomes. But you do have guys like DeAndre Hopkins, who is probably aged out. Travis Kelce, who we'll see if he retires or not. I don't know if he needs to retire, but it very well could be because he didn't look the same. You don't have a true blue starting running back. Like Pacheco's a nice piece. Kareem Hunt is a bit of a journeyman and aging out at this point, but you need receiving talent. You got Xavier Worthy there. He can provide you something, especially deep threat. This is a Chiefs team that going into the offseason with just about $11.5 million in cap space, it's going to be able to free some space up. They're probably going to lose some pieces on the defense, but it's a chance for them to retool, get a good running back in the draft, go out there and hunt for wide receivers, get some talented targets for Pat Mahomes to throw to. And while the defense might dip a little bit, if that offensive production comes back, they're still going to be very dominant, and it won't look as lackluster as it did this year.
Man, I don't have much else to add to that, brother. They're a good team. They're obviously well coached. They're getting old, but there's a potential that they could rebuild. The Eagles are going to be a problem for a long fucking time, I think. They're very young now. They have drafted Howie Roseman. When this show started, we used to bury that man. But God damn, has he turned it around. They have been fantastic in the draft. They have made brilliant moves in the offseason, free agency, bringing in Saquon Barkley. The Eagles are going to be hanging around for a very long time. The Chiefs are going to need to do a little bit of retooling. They're going to have to find a dude. Maybe Xavier Worthy becomes that dude, depending on how much work he puts in. He needs to be more consistent with his hands and his catching, obviously. But there's some things I like still about that Chiefs team. They're not going to just disappear. This isn't the end of Pat Mahomes. And the people who are talking like, is he out of the GOAT conversation? The man's career is probably not even half over. Like, he can go win at least 3 or 4 more of these fucking Super Bowls.
Yeah, definitely. and it'll be different. One of the big things why the Chiefs have been so dominant is because contractually you have money. You know, the later that you get on in a great player's career, the more that the money starts to affect the team around them, especially when it comes to quarterback. Pat's been getting paid a lot of money, and they've slowly been losing piece and piece and piece. That's one of the reasons why Tyreek Hill had to leave, because you can't afford to keep on premier players. Your good guys are going to end up walking. They haven't been able to bring in as much talent since then, and that's just part of the game of having really good players. But uh, they're gonna be able to still have a solid core group of players. The most important position on the field is quarterback. They are going to have him probably for the rest of his career. Um, I would say at least another 5 to 10 years, and they're going to be able to be competitive with that. And like you said, the Eagles also going to remain competitive. They are very young, and yes, we did beat the fuck out of Howie Roseman when the show started. Things have gone a lot better for that team, and a big part of it, they stay true to form for good franchises. They build through the trenches. They are big into bringing in offensive line.
Say
They are
that louder
big.
for all the people here in Cleveland. Say it real fucking loud for all the people here in Cleveland.
Yes, you build through the trenches. That is the foundation of your football team on the offense and defensive side of the ball. You can make things work on offense here and there if you've got a pieced together offensive line, but the consistency will not be there. Your running game will not work. Your passing game will not work consistently if you do not have a good offensive line. Same on the defense. That defensive line, if they aren't locking down that 5 to 6 offensive linemen across from them, the linebackers can't operate. The defensive backs are not going to be able to cover because it is a losing game for a defensive back. That wide receiver knows the play. They get to go out there and run their route. The defender is trying to mirror it, which means you are always going to kind of be behind. So the longer you're out there trying to defend, the harder job you're going to be able to, or harder job is going to be able to cover that receiver. That's why if that defensive line isn't getting home, isn't taking care of the guys in front of them, putting pressure on the quarterback, it'll be a losing game for the defensive backs. The Eagles showed in this game why the trenches matter and that why good teams build through those trenches. And they don't say, hey, we have a guy, he's 30 years old. He should be good for another 2 years, hopefully on the decline, but he's still good enough. They go out and find his replacement. So when a Jason Kelsey retires, you got a guy who already has game experience, who's been on the team for at least a year, that can step in right away, and you don't see that crazy of a drop off. They build through the trenches, and they don't build for this coming season. They build for years down the line.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right, man. We're going to pivot here. We're going to switch it up. But before we do, I want to say thank you to all the people who are tuning in right now. We appreciate you very much. Time is the most valuable thing that you have. So anytime you give some to us, we are forever grateful. If you wouldn't mind, please hop on over to our YouTube page, like, share, and subscribe over there. It would mean a great deal to us. Working on getting to those 1,000 subscribers. And to all the people who listen to us on podcast platforms rather than watch us, and you're wondering what just happened with the sight gag, go check us out on YouTube. I'm not going to explain to you a sight gag. It kind of takes away the joke. But for everybody who does listen to us and just downloads the podcast, thank you very much for tuning in as well. With that, Evo, let's go ahead. Let's transition over into kind of the offseason. There's additional news that have come out. Coaches have been hired. You brought it up a little earlier. The final head coaching hire has been made. The Saints have hired Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore to be their next head coach. Obviously, this is great for Kellen Moore because it's his opportunity to go and prove that he can help a franchise and turn it around. I don't know if it's a great hire for the Saints. It felt like they kind of got left out in the cold and Kellen was left. But also, Kellen Moore, his offense just scored 40 points in the fucking Super Bowl. Where are you at on this hire? I'm kind of up in the air. There are things that you can go back to and say that Kellen Moore has done well in his time as a coach and as an offensive coordinator. I don't know that game management has been one of his best traits. And now that he becomes a head coach, that becomes mainly his only trait. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm at like a C grade for the hire right now. Like, it's a good thing and a bad thing for the Saints organization. It's a good thing and a bad thing for Kellen Moore. It's probably, if I'm Kellen Moore, it's probably not the situation I want to go into. But if you really are wanting to get that head coaching job, you're going to take it where you can get it, right? Kellen Moore is now coaching Derek Carr as of right now, who he played against in a bowl game in college. And meanwhile, Kellen Moore destroyed Derek Carr in that bowl game as well. But he's a young coach, young offensive minded. If you go back, what was it, 2-3 years ago when he was with the Cowboys, there was a lot of talks about him being a hot head coaching candidate, him and Byron Leftwich, I think, for that year. So there's good things that you've seen there, but where he has gone and been an offensive coordinator, whether it's with the Cowboys, the Chargers, now out in Philly, he's gone to places that have had pretty decently established quarterbacks and decently established offensive playmakers. Say what you will about Dak, but Dak can put up a good amount of statistics. He can run an offense until it comes time to the playoffs. He's got CeeDee Lamb there. Like, he had a good thing going in Dallas. And then you go the Chargers, you have Justin Herbert, Brandon Staley, who is apparently looking to possibly be the defensive coordinator for him. He's really screwing things up on defense there. But Kellen Moore still has, Justin Herbert and some of those pieces around him there. Isn't fantastic, not as good as he was with the Cowboys, but it wasn't a train wreck by any means. And then you go to the Eagles and you look at that star-studded roster.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a kid in a candy shop, which goes to show how bad things were last year and how mismanaged that offense was for things not to click. Kellen just had to kind of go in there and be like, what are these pieces good at? I'm going to game plan for that. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have one of the top 3 running backs in the NFL running behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. That's an offensive coordinator's dream right there. It's really, really tough to do a bad job. And that's probably what helped lead him into this head coaching position, in addition to the Saints just not having options out there. Not a ton of great options. And of the good options, not many of them are going to go to the Saints team that is lacking in cap space, like very, very deep in the red. You don't have very many blue chip players on your team, if any, at this point. Like, you don't have a lot that you can really hold on to going into the future that you can say, this is a bookend piece for my team going forward. Derek Carr is not the guy. Spencer Rattler is probably not the guy. You really don't have much along the offensive line. Alvin Kamara is aging himself out.
Olave, if he's healthy.
And Olave could be a bright spot, but his career is kind of stalled out because they don't have the offensive pieces. You don't have the quarterback. You don't have the running game. You don't have the offensive line. You don't have other receivers around him. Rashid Shaheed is a decent player, but he's not doing anything like special. Like, he's still like a number 3 type of guy for the most part, other than explosive plays. And then on defense, you're aging out. Cam Jordan's aged out. You got what is Tyrann Mathieu still there? Like,
maybe. Fuck,
he's aging out. Like, you have an old roster of guys who used to be good or guys who are kind of has-beens, and you don't have the cap space to retool. It is a rough spot to go into. A lot of times coaches will look at some of those places like a blank slate, like, hey, I can get started, but you're at least a year away from even being able to really retool. You have to go in there and absolutely nail the draft to try to get this roster better. And I hope that they take some of the advice that we've been saying here. You need to build through the trenches. They need to go extremely heavy in the trenches in this draft and hope to hit on 1 or 2 of those guys that they pick, because that will hopefully help them out a year down the line. But it's a tough spot to go into as a head coach. We could be looking at another one and done situation here for Kellen Moore, because it's going to be tough. I mean, like, we saw some oomph from this Saints team the first 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
But I think that was just the NFL being caught off guard and that Saints team having a bit of moxie. Kubiak did some good things for him.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, just not a great roster. Just really not a great roster.
It's not a great roster. It's probably not going to improve anytime in the near future because they are still in salary cap hell. Like you mentioned, their premier players are not necessarily premier anymore. I mean, Cameron Jordan's still a good player. He's obviously at the end of his career.
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt about that. It it sucks for Kellen Moore because it could be a one and done, like you brought up. But if he knows going in and he signs a big deal, or he gets some assurances that he's going to have multiple years, so they're going to try to get him a quarterback in the next couple of years, because you brought it up, they should build through the trenches. Well, this is not a terrible draft to need trench play. Like, there's not a ton of premier talent in this upcoming draft. There's a lot of average, adequate depth along the offensive and defensive line in this draft. Tons of it. You can build a base in this draft. So it sucks for him, but if they're going to do that, you maybe look at a trade down. They get more picks. They go for a guy next year when it's what's supposed to be a much better quarterback class than the one that we have coming out. I mean, in this a terrible year to need a quarterback. We'll talk about some of those names in a little bit, but I just the hire makes sense for both of them, but it's not necessarily great for either of them. It's kind of I think where you were at as well.
Yeah. Like, there's obviously, you could go out there and get worse guys than a Kellen Moore, but it almost feels like a situation where if Kellen Moore isn't given like a 2-year grace period before he actually starts to be evaluated, like it's a match made to fail, just because it's going to be like he's going to have to pull a rabbit out of his hat to make this team very competitive. We've seen it in the past. Teams definitely can make a jump. They can get a lot closer to 500 and be competitive, but you are going to be really pulling teeth, I think, to make that happen. And look, you bring up Cam Jordan. I like Cam Jordan. He's a good player, but he's 35 years old, 13 years in the league, and he is accounting for $20 million in cap hit this year. And he still has another season on contract next year, and then 2 void years after that. That's the sort of mismanagement of this cap where they've been kicking that can down the road. And these guys are having heavy contracts at the end. Cam Jordan could be a cap hit this year. Like, he could be a cap casualty.
Ooh.
Because you're paying this guy an insane amount of money in the twilight of his career. And there's no end in sight. You can't really restructure that. Are you going to sign a 35-year-old to another 3-year deal to try to offset some of this and kick it further down the road?
Not if you want to get out of the hell that they're already in.
I don't know that he wants to play that long. Like, it's almost 40. You got to hang him up at some point and enjoy time with your family and worry about your health. Like, he's getting up there, man. I mean, you're going to be playing on a team that's not too good. Like, if Cam doesn't look at retiring, like, he easily could be a cap casualty.
Cam Jordan, camp casualty to the Lions.
Possible.
I'm going to go ahead and take a shot. That's what we do on the show. We take our shots.
You missed
the Browns
100% of the shots.
will have a fucking third helmet next year.
Okay.
It was announced today that it will. I don't know what color it is. I could still be 100% fucking wrong about that, but
I mean, I know you called the chrome. You said that you had heard the chrome in-house.
Stand by it. I did. I stand by it. We'll see. When they actually release the third helmet, we'll know if I was right or wrong. I was definitely wrong on the timeline. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But
alrighty.
My man, in some additional news that will probably surprise nobody if you think about it logically at all. Vegas had a hell of a weekend on the Super Bowl. Made $22 million on the Super Bowl. A record for sports books. I think that Pat Mahomes having, I don't know, one of the worst games of his entire career probably led to that, because I don't know about you. I placed several bets going into the Super Bowl. I put out a parlay for the people over on Twitter. I never even got fucking close, because every single one of my parlays had some sort of bet involving Pat Mahomes not having the worst game of his fucking career.
Yeah, I think on one of my parlays, I went real low. Wasn't expecting to make much off, but it was stuff like Pat Mahomes to reach 200 passing yards, which is a relatively low mark for him. Relatively low mark in the Super Bowl where teams are going to be going for it. we expect the game to be competitive, right? There's stuff going around about a guy who, put like a $2,500 bet on Harrison Butker to make one extra point. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like when the Chiefs scored touchdowns, they went for two, like a lot of the bets that you felt would be safe, like a Saquon anytime touchdown,
Barkley anytime touchdown.
they just did not come through. And Vegas made a killing because of it.
Yeah, they absolutely did. Man, that sucks. I did not enjoy it, but things happen. In additional news that I might not enjoy, there's gonna be a lot of teams looking for quarterbacks. My team, the Cleveland Browns, are one of them. Evo, I believe your team, the Minnesota Vikings, will technically be one of them, looking for a new quarterback to start for you next year. However, he's already in-house. It'll be a new guy who's already been there. Unless maybe the first guy we'll talk about on our list, Sam Darnold, decides to go back. If you guys decide to try to bring him back. So let's talk about some quarterbacks, man, because there's a lot of quarterback needy teams. There are very few quarterbacks that are high profile in this draft per se. I mean, some of them are very high profile. Some of them have growing names. I think that we're having one of those years where some of these guys are getting inflated a little bit, a la a Jackson Dart. I know you're a Dart guy. I have to check up on a report that my father told me about that apparently his grades are bad. I mean, I care about that because he's my quarterback. If he's not fucking studying in class, am I going to have to deal with a Kyler Murray situation where he's not studying the fucking playbook?
If the guy's getting C's and getting the degrees while he's getting poontang and slinging that football around,
yeah, but is he going to be able to fucking sling it at the next level? Is he going to be in it enough to do it at the next level?
Yeah, I'm sure that's all going to get picked apart for sure.
Oh yeah, it will absolutely get picked apart. But there's not a ton of people out there. Sam Darnold, it's been talked about potentially him going back. Where are the Minnesota Vikings at right now? Is there still talk of him possibly going back? Has there been a decision to move to McCarthy? Is it officially announced yet?
No, there's no official announcement, and I don't know why. There's no benefit to the team or anybody to make any sort of an official announcement yet. I guarantee that they're probably slow playing this the same way they did with Kirk Cousins last year. They're going to have a number in mind and say, hey, this is our number. If you want to come back and play here, we can make this financially work. Here's our number. And it's going to be probably a lot lower than what his normal market value would be. It was for Cousins, higher than I expected because it was still around the 35 mil a year mark, but it's probably going to be a lot lower than what he could get out there on the open market, even less than what that franchise tag is, which is right around 41, 42 million. The only way that I think that we franchise tag
has the average, his market value around 40 million.
Yeah. And so I feel like if we want to keep him, we would just franchise tag him to try to play another year and possibly try to peddle his wares elsewhere for draft picks. But they're probably going to come to the table and say, hey, look, this was never meant to be more than a 1 year thing. You did really good for us. We would like to have you back. However, we cannot pump financial resources into you. The same thing they did with Kirk Cousins. We can't pump financial resources into you. We'd love to have you back, but you aren't going to be our long-term future successor here. We've got that guy in-house in JJ McCarthy. And that's been the plan all along, was to have a bridge situation where JJ didn't have to be thrust in immediately. And it worked. Unfortunately, JJ went down with the knee injury, but Sam worked. So I think that they probably are going to offer him a contract closer to 30 to 35, see if he wants to take it, but it's probably not going to be heavily guaranteed at all either, with the anticipation that they can trade him off either this year or next if he were to want to come back. And if Sam wants to come back, think about it, that's more money than he's gonna, make if he didn't have this year with the Vikings per year. But you could go to another team, make a lot more money, make your bag, but the chances of success probably aren't going to be the same. The coaching, the system, and everything, quarterback rehab here for the Vikings, it was a perfect situation for him. But he also is going to have to understand too, if he comes here, I'm taking less money, and this is probably not my long-term future because they have JJ here. And JJ is the future. So I feel like Sam probably will end up walking. He's going to test the market unless, and you know that despite tampering periods and everything having dates on them, teams talk, GMs talk, agents talk. If there's a team out there that really wants Sam and is willing to send picks for him, then yeah, the Vikings might consider putting that franchise tag on him and trading him away for a second or a third or something like that, just to get something back in return now rather than waiting for a potential comp pick in the future.
Say, would you guys be in line for a comp pick from him?
I mean, of course, it depends on what else happens this offseason and who we bring in. They start to, negate each other when you bring a player in and lose a player. That's why the Vikings are only getting a third round comp pick this year after losing Kirk Cousins and Daniil Hunter and some of those guys, because we brought in Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel and Blake Cashman. Some of those start to negate each other. So if we go out there and have a decent free agency this year, which we are set up with, the sixth most cap space, I believe, going into free agency, around 60 to 70 million right now before restructures, we're probably going to bring in things that would negate that Sam Darnold leaving. So if you want a comp pick essentially in return for him, you could franchise him, trade him, and get that now in a third round pick. It's better than nothing. You're not losing any money from the deal. And the team that gets him gets priority rights to him. And now we get to work out a deal long term. And you're not getting him crazy above market value because, like you said, Spotrac has him around that $40 million range. If he's getting a 1-year deal that's $42 million, then you're able to extend him beyond that and spread out a lot of that money. It's not a crazy situation. And anyone beyond, I think, the Titans, your Browns, and the Giants, any team beyond that needs a quarterback, I think is going to be in the market. Because
Raiders
is definitely one of those that's up there because Pete Carroll's there. Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator. It doesn't look like a terrible coaching staff. That's something that Sam could possibly work with. But I mean, you've got other teams like the Rams, who the Stafford situation is kind of up in the air. What's going to happen there?
Think that they're supposed to be working out a deal for him to go back?
Yeah, they want him back, but they're going to have to find a way to lower that cap hit for things to work out. But I mean, there's teams like that could be looking for Sam Darnold that don't need a absolute quarterback day one right now. There's guys that could be looking at him as a future starter for him, things like that. There's going to be a market for sure. It'll just be interesting to see how teams want to play it. Look, I personally think if you see the franchise tag happen, that the Vikings won't be bringing Sam in to play for him on the franchise tag. I think it will be a tag and trade situation.
Okay. Now I'm going to bring up a team here. Loses a veteran quarterback, has a young guy that needs some grooming. We're not sure if he's going to get it done. Torres might be interested in knowing what Sam Darnold is going to do. What do you think that as a fit could be? Because they're going to need somebody to come in who has proven that they can win a little bit at the NFL. Now Sam has done that. A athletic guy, not as athletic as Anthony Richardson, decent arm, not as good an arm as maybe a Joe Flacco, kind of somewhere in between, because we got to think of somewhere we can get a fit for Sam Darnold. Is Indy one of those potential places? I know it doesn't pop right off the page, but is Indy ready to run this thing back and we're going to trot out Anthony Richardson again at less than 50% completion percentage without bringing in somebody else?
I mean, I think that's a strong option if you think about it. But if they do that, if they bring in a Sam Darnold, it's not going to be on a 1-year deal. It's going to be on a 3+ year deal. You're writing him out through the rest of Anthony Richardson's contract. I feel like that would be the team saying, hey, this isn't working out. And they're going to try to trade AR-15, get where they can, a la Trey Lance. And look, it's better to fucking cut your loss.
I mean, are we not in that same fucking conversation right now between Trey Lance and Anthony Richardson? Guys that didn't play a ton of football and then haven't put it together when they were in the NFL. Injuries were also a problem. It's like the same fucking story.
It's very damn close. And I don't think that we've seen, look, We haven't seen a ton from Trey Lance on the field. We have seen a lot more from Richardson, and I haven't necessarily seen progress from him that makes you think like, oh, he's going to make some sort of big leap or jump. The Colts do have like they've got a solid offensive line. You got Jonathan Taylor. You've got some receiving options.
Working
They
on
could be a
play action.
quarterback. They could be a quarterback away from having a decent little offense out there. You bring in a guy like Sam Darnold, and things probably feel a lot safer. I mean, you saw the production that they were able to have just from a Joe Flacco. I think Sam Darnold's better than Joe Flacco at this point. Like that's not a terrible idea. Um, let's see here. How much cap space do the Colts have? They've got 28 mil in cap space this year. Backloaded contract. Yeah, that it's doable. They're not in the red. So yeah, that's an option that I really hadn't thought about. I like that.
Here we go. Here we go. All right, man. Let's talk about some of these other names. Potential free agents. Nothing is set in stone yet. Obviously, any of these guys could kind of work things out. But Pittsburgh is going to be looking for a new starting quarterback. They said that they will not be moving on with Russell Wilson. So we know he is available. Any suitors for Russell? I mean, obviously, there's going to be probably some, I think. But is he going somewhere to be a veteran bridge on one of these teams like a Giants or a Tennessee where they know they're going to be making that transition over? Or is he going to go somewhere where he thinks he's going to have a chance to maybe play a little bit like out there in Vegas?
I think it's going to be a mix of both. Like he's going to go to a team where he's going to probably be the starter game one. And all those teams that you brought up are places that he can go be the starter day one. But he's not unaware of the fact that he's no spring chicken. Your time in the NFL is going to be limited. Get it while you can. He's shown that he can start games and still be an okay quarterback at times. The familiarity of Pete Carroll out there in Vegas is definitely probably enticing. And then teams like the Giants or the Titans, they are both teams that do need that guy who will be a bridge that they can rely on, a veteran who knows what he's doing for 8+ games in their first year. Yeah, any of those teams are going to be viable options for Russ, and I don't think that he is a bad option for any of them, really.
Yeah, I don't want Russ to come here. However, the other guy that was out there in Pittsburgh, Justin Fields. Now we do not know what's happening with him. They haven't said bring it back one way or the other. This is a kid, former first-round pick, only going to be 26 years old going into the start of next season. Do you think? I mean, and he put some good shit on tape this year, and they just wouldn't make the transition back from Russ after they switched off and went to Justin. Do you think that they end up saying, "Hey, you know what? Let's try this again"? Have they seen enough to know that it won't work for what they want to do? And if that's the case, where can Justin Fields go find a home? Because you got to think that Justin Fields now, if he doesn't get another shot start, it doesn't matter. He can go be a backup in a Buffalo, like we saw with what's the kid's name from Menor? You can't throw left.
Oh, former Trubisky.
Thank you, Trubisky. He's from Menor. That could end up being his role now. Or is somebody going to say, man, this kid's still young and put some good shit out there. Let's give him a shot to come in and compete.
Look, I think that he would have a market out there, but it's not going to be like a bustling market. He's not going to have a market where he can go out and make like a bunch of money. You can pay this guy 20 or less a year. I don't know that the Steelers are in a place where they can let him walk. Because if you let Russ walk, you have to have someone there that can play quarterback. You had Justin Fields starting for you for a decent part of this year, and it arguably was the better part of your year when you were winning a lot more games than people expected. You know that he knows the system, you can work with it, but he's probably not the long-term solution, but you need to have someone in-house. You got to bring him back at this point unless they make a trade for someone. There's names out there that could be traded for. Derek Carr is one that gets brought up. A Kyler Murray, I don't think is out of the question as someone that could get brought up. or if you're already having preliminary talks with someone who's going to probably become a free agent, like an Aaron Rodgers. I know that connection gets made a lot. I don't know if that head coach quarterback combo necessarily works there in Pittsburgh for Rodgers to go there. But I think that outside of those options, you kind of have to bring Justin Fields back, and then it's an opportunity for you to again focus on the rest of your team, get your trenches good, get ready for next year when you're going to have a better quarterback class available to you. Unless you want to go after someone like a Dylan Gabriel who has a lot of the physical characteristics of a Russ, but a lot less, wear on the tires.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned something in there, kind of sparked a thought of mine, that is having somebody in house. And that got me thinking because the Browns are going to need a quarterback as well. Jameis Winston is a free agent, but there are some other notable names on here that are free agents that could be guys that are kind of like in-house. Jacoby Brissett, who has been in the Stefanski offense. We are, by all accounts, switching back to Kevin Stefanski's offense and running the wide zone that Jacoby was okay in. And if we draft a young guy, Jacoby could be a mentor in too. So that could be a fit there. Jameis obviously could be brought back, was kind of supposed to be brought in to run Stefanski's system. That didn't happen. But another name, we don't know if it's actually happening yet, but by all accounts, it fucking is. Kirk Cousins could be a name, a reunion here in Cleveland with Kevin Stefanski. Now, based on the way things sit now, Kirk Cousins would have to be traded for. He has not been cut. He is not post-June designation, none of that. So right now, you'd have to give up assets for him. If he is cut, you can get him for very cheap, much like Russell Wilson.
Assuming he doesn't want to go out there and make more money, because one thing that Kirk Cousins is good at, and that he'll be in the Hall of Fame for, is insane contracts.
Bad getter.
Yeah.
So, when we think about that, because we have no idea what the Browns are going to do at quarterback. Deshaun Watson is obviously going to be on the roster. He'll probably be on the PUP list to start. I don't know if they're working NFI lists. I don't know how that's going to work. I would imagine that we would have heard something if the second Achilles pop was something bad and outside of what was allowed. I don't know. But if we don't have anybody in-house, we're going to have to find somebody. If we don't bring Jameis back, is DTR going to be the guy that is the leader of that quarterback room? Because that most certainly can't happen. Not if we have any intention on actually trying to win. And with Myles Garrett's situation up in the air, there's no telling what we're going to do. Because if we trade Myles, I'm 100% against drafting a quarterback. Because I believe that we'd be setting the young man up for failure, no matter who we draft. If we keep Myles and we take a quarterback, cool. But somebody is going to have to mentor him, unless we're getting ready to, unless DTRs be like, hey, bro, Kevin normally tells me about 24 hours in advance before I start. So good luck. I have no idea what it's like to prep to be a fucking starter in the NFL.
That's the thing is it's tough for me to say like what sort of quarterback would be a fit for you guys. Because at this point, I just don't really know what sort of an offense you guys are going to have, what type of offense you're necessarily going to run. Look, I think that probably the best option in many ways for you is Kirk Cousins because of the familiarity, the relationship. Kirk Cousins, a year, more than a year removed from the Achilles injury. You have the possibility of him getting back to the ability to throw the ball better and a little bit mobility. Obviously he's not a mobile quarterback, but a little bit something, right? A little bit something there. But he's a guy that can run an offense as a competent quarterback, despite being 35, 36 years old. Like he's not like extremely aged out or anything like that. The problem is that you guys have to block for him. Like you need to invest heavily in guys who can block for him because he's not mobile. And that's the scary thing. The other good thing with Kirk Cousins is that you bring him in, and it doesn't have to be on a 1-year deal, and then you bring in a rookie next year. He's not necessarily the mentorship type of quarterback. Like, he doesn't mentor guys under him necessarily, but he's not a bad mentor for a young quarterback, as in they can watch and see how a professional operates an offense and acts and everything, how he spends his money reasonably at Kohl's, things like that. And Kirk Cousins can be your guy this year and a bridge next year, kind of like the Falcons unintentionally did with Michael Big Dick Penix. So it's not a terrible option. You could get him on the cheap if he's released from the Falcons. So that's not a terrible option. But beyond that, I don't know that you look at any of the other guys that are going to be out there available and say, like, I'm super stoked about this guy coming in to be my starting quarterback. I think out of the list of guys that I'm looking at, like, Brissett makes a lot of sense. He feels like your prototypical, this is a bridge guy who is meant to be there just to be able to run an offense and mentor the young guy, but you're not expecting wins from him. The one out of this list that I'm looking at that would provide me any sort of like a little like, ooh, maybe there's something, it would be Marcus Mariota. And even then it's not crazy. Like, I'm not getting super excited, but he might provide you a little excitement here and there in some games, but you also know that he's not a long-term solution. Again, none of these guys really are. So it's a tough spot for you guys to be in. We'll see. I'm just saying, if you bring Kirk Cousins in, you should just spend almost every draft pick on offensive line.
Yeah, well, who knows what the hell we're going to do. But the names, and you bring it up, are not great. Once you get past a couple of those top names, we talked about Sam Darnold, but as you get through here, you got Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Taylor Heineke, Mariota, Drew Lock, Andy Dalton, Jared Stidham, Joe Flacco, Mac fucking Jones, Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Case Keenum still kicking around this motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush can play a little bit.
He's going to be a free agent. We'll see if he ends up back in Dallas or not. But he's a guy that's shown that he can put up Dak Prescott-like stats.
Technically, yes, he has. I don't know if that works if you take him out of that system, though.
If you take away CeeDee Lamb,
yeah.
What else is in that system? I mean, CeeDee Lamb, respect, one of the best wide receivers in the game.
Yeah,
but I mean, no running game.
They're
not great. Second, third wide receivers, decent tight end there. You guys got a decent tight end in Njoku. It's like you need a receiver for him, and you need a little bit better blocking, but it's an option.
Yeah, listen, I don't know where we're going. I know that somebody's playing quarterback for the Browns next year.
Someone has to, unless you just a wildcat the whole time.
Hey, you know what? We've drafted a couple of these running backs. Let's fucking just run the ball. Let's go back to 1940s football, baby.
One thing that I'll say is that if I'm you guys, I'm not against, because you have 500,000 draft selections this year. I think you need to take your shot at a quarterback in the middle rounds. Someone that it doesn't matter if they flop or not. It's a body that can go in there. But best case scenario, again, you find your guy that ends up being the next Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Tom Brady. One of those guys that's taken in a middle round that you're not expecting that ends up doing something. Guys like a Dylan Gabriel could be that. Guys like a Jackson Dart. I do think he's going to get pushed up a lot more in the second round, possibly traded up for in one of those last picks of the first round. But like, if you're able to get that guy in the third round, just take a shot. Because again, you have 500,000 picks. You could maybe strike gold on a quarterback. Maybe you find a long-term backup, or you could go out there and draft some wide receiver from Western Kentucky who's probably not going to make the roster long-term. Like, that's just the odds of the NFL.
That's very true.
If you don't take your shot, you're never going to find a Brock Purdy, So you might as well go for it, just not have high expectations, and then be surprised if something does happen.
Did you just say you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take?
Absolutely.
Hell
Been
yeah.
Gretzky, Michael
Love
Scott.
it. Love it. Oh, brother. So quarterbacks gonna be a hot button issue. But we're gonna talk about the last one. Last quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Saved him special for you. Maybe he's going back. Maybe he's not going back. Apparently, he was told he's not coming back. Now I'm hearing conversations that he could go back as long as he doesn't go on Pat McAfee. Shout out Pat McAfee for the brand. What the fuck is going on with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets organization? Have you seen any of the stuff about they don't want him on McAfee or any of that?
I haven't seen anything about that yet. I haven't really been on the socials or the internet today. I've been very busy at work. If there's anything about that, I'm not sure about it. I feel like at this point he won't come back because, real or not, Aaron has some mud on his face in the news media, and he's got to take that out on someone. It's never going to be introspective. He's going to point at either Jets ownership, new head coach Aaron Glenn. I don't think that he's going to come back to that at this point. I think that he will be like, okay, release me. I'm going to go show the open market what I still got. I think he's egotistical enough that he won't try to make it go back and work. And Aaron don't like to be told what to do regardless. So if the rumors are true that you can't go on Pat McAfee, that's a big no-no.
Yeah. Now, where does he have a home? Because I don't think he goes back to the Jets either. I know where I'm hoping he lands.
Look, there's two sides to it. I think that he's going to want to go to a place where he feels like he can win because he knows that he doesn't have a ton of time left in the NFL.
Agreed.
The Titans isn't that place, but the Titans, he does have, home in Nashville, friends in Nashville, things like that. So that's kind of a connection. Obviously, there's the Steelers.
Yes.
There's talks about,
where he should go. He should go to the fucking Steelers, and then he should rip it apart from the inside out.
That
because
would be the cancer.
Exactly what will fucking happen. He needs to go to the Steelers.
That'd be the cancer scenario that finally gets rid of Tomlin. Probably. Yeah, that'd be rough. I can tell you where he won't be going is Minnesota. Y'all can stop with that fucking trope. It's not Brett Favre 2.0. We're not gonna go from, having a decent quarterback in Sam Darnold and having a rookie in house and having our potential backup in house in Daniel Jones, who the team seems to like, from all reports, to bringing in Aaron Rodgers, where it's just going to be drama and bullshit. Like, they don't need that. It's not going to happen.
All right.
We got other places we need to spend our money.
Yeah. You guys still looking for corners?
Yeah.
Well,
it's not the top of the list. It's not the top of the list.
If we trade Miles, we might have one for you. Just make sure you bring a lot of picks.
We don't have a lot of picks, so
I know. Oh, that's right. You guys only have four or three.
We got 4 picks. It's 5 according to PFF, but 239 is not ours.
I think the Browns have 47 picks this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, fucking mock draft 1.5 was intense, but brother, I don't have too many more quarterbacks I wanted to talk about. I wanted to get into the quarterback carousel though. Real quick, Danny Dimes, you brought him up. Any plans on him returning? Are they expecting to keep him in house as well? You talked a little bit about potential backup. Is Danny going to go try to find a home, or is he going to do a rehabilitation year under a guy like KOC who just showed he can rehabilitate a quarterback in Sam Darnold?
If Daniel Dimes is smart, if Vanilla Vic's agents and everything, his management are talking smart to him, it probably would be to come back to the Vikings on a very modest contract, something almost identical to what Sam Darnold took, a 1-year, $10 million deal, where some of that is pushed off into a void year because Sam Darnold's contract was actually only like 4 or 5 against the cap this year, and the rest is in a void year next year. Something like that, because Danny Dimes already made his bag from New York. He isn't going to be hurting for money, but if he wants to rehab his career, what better place to do that than underneath a coach kind of like a Shanahan or a KOC or something like that. If a team comes walking out and says like, hey, we're going to pay you $40 million to come in and be our starter, it's tough to walk away from that. But if you want long-term success, like his best bet is to be on the Vikings. Then it forces the Vikings, or doesn't force the Vikings' hand to start JJ day one, even though he is ready to basically participate in practices and everything. Knee rehab's going good. But the Vikings again aren't forced in a situation where you had to start JJ right away. You can play Danny Dimes if you need to. The reports from some of the players apparently while he was there in practice were like, this guy's actually got a fucking arm. Like he's making impressive throws and stuff. You just got to fix what's between the ears a little bit, which is essentially what we did with Sam Darnold. So if you're able to do it with Danny Dimes to an extent, worst case, you can say like, hey, he got the Sam Darnold treatment as an agent. Next year, you can say he got the Sam Darnold treatment. He might have not gotten to the field because they've got JJ McCarthy there, but like he's not some lame duck. He's won a playoff game before, you know? So you can not say that about other quarterbacks in the league that are viewed much higher. So I think that his best bet to have more financial earnings in the future would be to stick in house with the Vikings, be the primary backup for a year, get rehabbed, and then move on to another team that can take a shot at.
If somebody comes in and offers Danny Dimes $40 million a year, he should fucking take it. And if anybody does it, it's going to be the Jets because they're going to be like, oh my God, this guy's got 85 speed on as a quarterback on Madden.
Either that or the Jags. The Jags, I mean, they got Trevor Lawrence down there, but they are, known for making bad decisions.
Yeah, well, we'll see how their coaching decision was.
Yeah.
Doesn't look too fruitful so far.
It's an interesting one for sure.
Interesting.
Hey, they
choice.
They got former Vikings assistant quarterback coach Grant Udinsky down there running the offense, so things might look up.
Okay. All right. That hell of a pull there, my man. Hell of a pull there. But my guy, I don't know if I got too many other things that I had on the docket. Did you have anything else that you wanted to do before we get out of here?
No, sir. Next show, I think, is when we really get to dive deep into what the offseason is going to look like. But right now, I'm going to let the hangover kind of continue to fade away from the superb owl, the big game. Reflect on the season for another week. And then we'll get into the 2025-26 NFL season and all the other sports that happen during the summer.
Baseball season is right around the corner. I am so excited because I love baseball. But my man, I appreciate you. Hell of an NFL season. This was a lot of fun this year. It was tough at times, but man, hey, we made it, baby. We made it. I appreciate you and to everybody at home, no matter where you're watching, out on the road. Thank you guys. We appreciate you guys tuning into us every week. Anytime that you can tune into us, it's awesome because, like I said before, time is the most valuable thing that you have. So anytime you give some of it to us, we are forever grateful. If you want to interact with our show, you can go anywhere down below. We got X, Facebook, TikTok, the call line, and our YouTube page. Please go ahead and bounce over there, like, share, and subscribe with your friends. It would mean a great deal to us. But with that, we're going to get out of here. Evo, give the people one last word.
Onwards and upwards to 2025 and everything that lies in the future.
All right, man. I appreciate you. We will see you a little later this week. But I'm Mike, that's Evo. This is the Lineman Lounge. See you.
Luke.